أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في العالمين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. I express my happiness again to be with you, inshallah, to continue what I discussed in the previous week, inshallah, related to Islam and violence. But before that, today was the 13th of the month of Rajab, and it is the birthday anniversary of the Shia first Imam Ali alayhi salam. And we all know how Imam Ali alayhi salam is respected not only by the Shia, not only by the Sunnis, but by many thinkers belonging to different religions and even different schools of thought. Imam Ali alayhi salam is the one regarding whom a Christian scholar, George Jordan, he writes a book, Al-Imam Ali alayhi salam, Sawtul Adalat al-Insaniya. Imam Ali, the voice of the human justice. It was published about 80 years ago. And Mary Shimel, she is not a Muslim, but she has researches about Islam and Shia school of thought. And based on her will, on the stone, on her grave, a narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam is written, is inscribed. Al-nas niyamun idha matun tabahu. People are sleeping. When they pass away, they are awakened. This is a narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam. And one of the words of Imam Ali alayhi salam is written on one of the gates of United Nations. So this is a personality that has been admired by people belonging to different denominations and different religions and school of thought. So congratulations on the birthday anniversary of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So in the previous session we talked about the number of the wars of the Prophet and how sometimes it is misunderstood, and the conclusion was that we should not say like 85 wars or 95. The wars of the Prophet is divided into three categories, or rather all the wars of the Prophet can be mentioned to be only three wars. The war with the polytheists, the war with Jews, and with the Christian. And it happened through 20 operations, many of which did not involve serious clashes. Okay, this is what I mentioned in the previous week. Now, for tonight, the subject is investigating the initiative or defensive nature of the Prophet's war. Now the question is that, okay, the Prophet of Islam, he had 3 wars, 20 operations. Is it in the form of what we call it al-jihad al-ibtida'i, the initiative war, the aggressive war, or al-jihad al-difa'i, the defensive war? So today, in the terminologies related to war, they divide war into initiative or aggressive and defensive. Sometimes you initiate a war, sometimes another country, another party attacks you and you just defend yourself. Now, the question is about the wars of the Prophet. So these 3 wars in 20 operations, were they initiative, aggressive, or they were defensive? Now, according to the famous idea among the Muslim scholars, as for initiative jihad, there are at least three conditions. So first, the idea is that it can be done when we have an infallible present, like the Prophet, like one of the Imams. So the Shia believe that we are in the time of the major occultation. The 12th Imam is hidden. So in this time, according to the famous idea among the Shia scholars, we do not have the right to have initiative war. As for defensive war, I think all people agree that when you are attacked, then you have all the right to defend yourself. The second condition is that Muslims should have enough power to initiate a war. And the third is that before any war, you should call the other party to the religion of Islam. Now, whether the Prophet and the Imams, they have the right to begin a war or initiative war, this is one question. And the second question is that if they have this right, did the Prophet use this right or not? So again, the very famous idea among all Muslims, both Shia and Sunni scholars, is that yes, based on some verses of the Quran and the narrations, if the conditions are met, then the Prophet has the right sometimes to begin and initiate a war. Of course, for the logical reasons which are mentioned in the Quran. For example, so we are talking about a prophet. So if a prophet sees that there are some oppressed people, there are some oppressive people who are oppressing them, so as a prophet, he has a right to initiate a war to set free and help those people who are oppressed, okay? And so this is well proved based on the verses and the narrations that the Prophet has the right to initiate a war. Okay, as a non-Muslim, some people may argue and they may not accept that, but as a follower of any religion, we can agree that if we believe in a prophet and he is connected to God, he has divine knowledge, then in some cases he has the right to help the oppressed people, although he may not be attacked, but he has this right, sometimes he has this duty to help the oppressed people. So this is not the topic of my discussion. So what we are going to discuss tonight is that, okay, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had this right to initiate and begin some wars. He had this right of al-jihad al-ibtida'i. But in practice, did any of the, and was any of the Prophet's wars initiative, or all of them were defensive? So this is the question. We are going to investigate the initiative nature or defensive nature of the wars of our Prophet. And I'm going to, inshallah, prove based on historical sources that our Prophet did not begin any war. He did not initiate any war, and all the wars of the Prophet were defensive. Although, again, I repeat, he had all the right to do so, but he never did so. In the previous session, in answering one of your questions, I mentioned that when it comes to any war, we should not look at the day of the war, okay, to discuss and to conclude whether it is defensive or aggressive or initiative. Let's talk about Tufan al-Aqsa. the 7th of October, okay, which happened just a few months ago. So if we just pay attention to this date in the history, 7 October 2023, if you just concentrate on this very day, you may consider it an aggressive and initiative war by Palestinians. Okay? If you just pay attention to this spot in the history. But the reality is that for any war, you should go back and study the background. What led Palestinians to have this Tufan al-Aqsa? You should go back to 70, 80 years back from 1948. Okay? So that is the point. So if you consider that, you come to this conclusion that for many decades, these oppressed Palestinians have been targeted, have been attacked from time to time. And now they have found this opportunity to fight. That is the point when it comes to analyzing the wars of the Prophet. You should not just look at the date that it's happening. You should go back to the background, to what led to this war. Now, the same can be mentioned about, many African countries and their wars against the colonizers. Okay, it might happen that a country, an African country, an Indian country, India, for example, they just try to fight the colonizers, okay? If you just pay attention to the date that these people are fighting the colonizers, you may conclude that these are doing, initiative war, aggressive wars. But if you go back to decades and sometimes centuries of oppression done by colonizers, you can consider it a defensive war. For many decades, for many centuries, these people have been suffering all kinds of, calamities by the colonizers. And now they have found an opportunity to, look for independence. So that is my first point. For each and every war, we should go back to the history beyond that and to the background beyond that. Now, based on what I mentioned in the previous session, the wars of the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, was 3 wars basically, with the polytheists, with the Jewish people, and the Christians. So inshallah, as the time allows me, I will analyze the Prophet's war one by one to see if you come also to the same conclusion that our Prophet, in all the cases, he was just defending. So let's say we begin by the wars between the Prophet and the polytheists, the pagans of the city of Mecca. So famous wars like Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, and the conquest of Mecca, and so on and so forth. So we know that the Holy Prophet, as I mentioned previously, for 13 years when he was in the city of Mecca, he never began any war. In all those 13 years, Muslims were under severe persecution by the pagans. If you have seen the famous movie, Muhammad the Messenger, directed by Mahmoud Aqad, you can see some of the scenes of these persecutions, how the Muslims were punished by the pagans. And we have some martyrs. The parents of Ammar Yasser were martyred under such persecutions. The Prophet himself, in many cases, he was seriously harmed by the pagans. The stories are mentioned in the books. For 3 years, the Muslims were forced to go to the valley of Abu Talib, Sheikh Abu Talib, under complete economic sanctions. No one had any right to sell anything to the Muslims. So for 3 years, Muslims were in just a small valley without any connection and relation to other people. That is why some Muslims were forced to migrate to Habasha or Abyssinia. And finally, the Muslims and the Prophet migrated from Mecca to Medina, along with the majority of the Muslims. So first, we should not forget what happened in the city of Mecca. For 13 years, Muslims are under great pressure, punishment, persecution by the pagans. And there is one important point here. You know, the migration from Mecca to Medina was not that easy. It was not possible for Muslims, for the majority of the Muslims, to do it publicly. That is why the majority of the Muslims, they left all their properties in the city of Mecca. Okay, they have houses, they have everything in the city of Mecca, and now they are going to migrate to the city of Medina. So they were not able to carry with them any of their properties. And right from their migration, all the properties of Muslims were confiscated by the pagans. Okay, so this is a very significant point, that every property belonging to Muslims in the city of Mecca is confiscated by the polities of the city of Mecca. Then, even when the Muslims were in the city of Medina, the pagans sent a message to the people of Medina that you have to, kick out all these Muslims. Otherwise, as people of Mecca, we will attack you. Okay? So the Muslims, the people of Medina, were threatened. Even after the migration of the Prophet and Muslims from Mecca to Medina, the people of Medina were threatened by the people of Mecca that will come and kill all of you. So this is mentioned in the books of history, that day and night there were some guards in the city of Medina to take care of the Muslims and the people of Medina, because they were very explicitly threatened by the people of Mecca. In one case, one of the mushrikeen, Kurz ibn Jabir, he attacked the city of Medina. He killed some people and looted some properties of the city of Medina. It's not only that, there were a few Muslims who did not have this opportunity to migrate from Mecca to Medina. So they were under high pressure by the pagans of the city of Mecca. So up until now, for 13 years, the Holy Prophet, the Muslims, they have no reaction. They have no war. They do not begin any war. But in the city of Medina, when these hostile actions of the pagans continues, a verse is revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for the first time, the verse which is related to war is revealed to the Prophet in the city of Medina. Chapter Hajj, verse 39. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا. Those who are fought against are permitted to fight because they have been wronged, they have been oppressed. I think this verse is also very clear in saying that you Muslims, now you have right to defend yourself, to fight. Why? بأنهم ظلموا, because already you have been wronged and you have been fought against by the pagans. So what led to the first important war between the Prophet and the pagans of the city of Mecca, the war which is known as the Ghazwa of Badr? I mentioned that Ghazwa is the war in which the Holy Prophet himself is present, and Sariya is the war in which the Holy Prophet in person is not present. So just to give you an example, imagine that one of the Western countries, one of these colonizers, they have stolen thousands and thousands kilos of gold and diamond and everything from one African countries, okay? So they have stolen so many precious jewelries. And imagine now a group of the same country, of the same people who have stolen your properties, your jewelries, they are passing by your country, carrying, some kilos of those great, jewelries. Do you have the right to take back some amount of those jewelries which are stolen from you? Of course, yes. No one would blame you. Imagine someone has come and stolen some properties from your home. And now you find the same person, you see some of your properties in his hands, and you try to, take them back. Can you be called an aggressive person? No, I'm just trying to take back some of my properties which belong to me, and this person stole from me, okay? So when it comes to the Battle of Badr, some people may consider it, again, an initiative war, an aggressive war by the Prophet. But again, let's consider all the conditions, what led to this, war. The Holy Prophet was informed that a trade caravan belonging to the pagans of Quraysh is passing by a near road which was close to the city of Medina. So it was a trade caravan. So it was a good opportunity for Muslims to go to these caravan, because this caravan belongs to the same people who confiscated the properties of Muslims. Okay? The same people who have already stolen the properties of the Muslims. So the Prophet and some companions tried to chase that caravan and to take some of their properties, which belonged to the Muslims to begin with. Already their properties were confiscated in the city of Mecca. So they were not able to find that caravan, but Abu Sufyan, who was at that time the leader of the pagans of the city of Mecca, he was informed about this incident. And this is the first time that the Muslims are doing so. So it was very difficult for Abu Sufyan to tolerate that. So he asked the polities of the city of Mecca to prepare an army and come toward the city of Medina. So they prepared an army of 900 people, and the army of Muslims were 313 only. And that led to the Ghazwa and the war of Badr. So the first point is that the Holy Prophet did not go out for the sake of war. He just was trying to chase that trade caravan, just to take back some properties which were already taken and stolen by the pagans of Mecca. That is why, it's been mentioned a story that one of the people on the way, he asked the Prophet that why you are not carrying enough weapons of the war, like sword and everything. And the Holy Prophet answering him said that we are not going for a war. So the intention of the Prophet to begin with was not a war. Second, the Holy Prophet sent a deputy, a representative to the pagans that we are not going to fight you. So again, the Holy Prophet was looking for a kind of peace and to convince them to go back to the city of Mecca without any war. But Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, and the other elders of the city of Mecca, they emphasized that we are going to fight the Muslims, and this led to the famous battle, that is the Battle of Badr. So the Holy Prophet did not go out for a war, Second, the Holy Prophet wanted just to take back some of the properties. Third, the Holy Prophet tried his best to prevent this war by sending representative, and even during war, the Holy Prophet told the Muslims before the war that we are not going to begin the war. I mean, you see that almost in all the cases, that Muslims never, they shoot the first arrow, if we put it this way. And you see that in the wars of Imam Ali alayhi salam as well. All of them were also defensive. There were some captives taken. So the Muslims won this war. I mean, the pagans were badly defeated. There were some, captives. The Holy Prophet again made many instructions for the Muslims to treat in a very kind behavior toward the captives of the war. So now this is the second year after Hijrah. So Abu Sufyan and the pagans of Quraysh could stop here, to end the war with the Muslims. But unfortunately, Abu Sufyan said that we are going to revenge. Even he asked the people of Mecca that no one has the right to wear makeup and jewelry and everything, just to make them ready for a kind of revenge. So in the following year, they come toward the city of Medina, and the Battle of Uhud happened. And again, this is very clear that in this battle, Muslims in the city of Medina are attacked by the army of Quraysh, by the army of the pagans from the city of Mecca. So in the first place, apparently the Muslims were defeated. You can read the story about the Battle of Uhud. We may have a discussion about the moral attitude of the Prophet and his moral instructions even during a war. After the Battle of Badr, the Holy Prophet instructed the bodies of the pagans who were killed to be buried in a place. Okay? But when it comes to the polities of the city of Mecca, they mutilated the bodies of some of the Muslims who were martyred in the Battle of Uhud. One of them is Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet. And it's been mentioned in some historical books that even some women, some pagan women, they made some necklaces from the some mutilated parts of the body of the martyred Muslims. Anyway, so this is the Battle of Uhud taking place in the third year after Hijrah. In the following year, the polities of Mecca, they said that we are going to fight you, O Muslim, in the following year. But they did not show up. But then in the fifth year after Hijrah, we have the famous battle which is known as Al-Ahzab or Khandaq, the trench or the ditch. So this battle is called Ahzab or parties because in it the pagans of the city of Mecca, they asked many different groups to join them to prepare a very big army to defeat the Muslims. That is why it is called the Battle of Ahzab. They also tried to ask help from the Jewish tribes inside the city of Medina. When the Prophet went to the city of Medina, he made a pact, some kind of peace treaty with three Jewish tribes. And they accepted that I will come to the wars between the Prophet and the Jewish people. But in this case, the Jewish people also helped the pagans, and the Battle of Khandaq took place. Khandaq means ditch or trench. It was proposed by Salman al-Farisi because the army of Quraysh was a very big army. According to some historical reports, about 10,000 people. So the idea was that we dig a trench around the city of Medina, and through that the pagans cannot attack the city of Medina. And they did so, and the army of Quraysh, the pagans, they were not able to pass the trench. In one of the last days, a few of them, like Amr ibn Abdullah, he was able to pass, and he was killed by Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then some other events happened, and the army of Quraysh, could not gain anything, and then they just went back. So again, this is the famous battle of Ahzab and Khandaq, and digging a trench around the city of Medina means that the Holy Prophet is defending himself, is not attacking. Now, from this time onwards, the pagans come to this conclusion that they are not able to defeat the Muslims anymore. So now Muslims are so powerful that even when the pagans, they ask help from many parties, from even Jewish people, they could not defeat the Prophet. So this is the time of the power for Muslims and for the Prophet. So it was, from the year 5 onward, you did not see the pagans of Mecca to attack the city of Medina, because they came to this conclusion that they do not have this power to attack the Muslims. Muslims are now very powerful. They have a very powerful army. So if the Holy Prophet was looking for a war, this is the best time to attack the city of Mecca. No one doubted the fact that if the Holy Prophet attacked the city of Mecca at that time, they could not resist. But you cannot see any historical book telling you that the Holy Prophet has attacked the city of Medina, at the city of Mecca. So what about the conquest of Mecca? We know that Mecca was somehow conquered by Muslims. What about this? Is it like, an aggressive initiative war, or it is also a kind of defensive war? So for that, again, we need to go back to 2 years before that, and the famous event which is known as Sulh Hudaybiyah, the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah. What happened was that 1 year after the battle of Ahzab or Khandaq, the Holy Prophet told the Muslims that for some years we were not able to go to the city of Mecca for doing Hajj and pilgrimage, so we are going to do so in this year. So again, the intention of the Prophet was not war. That is why it has been mentioned in the books of history that the Muslims did not carry any weapons for the war. They are going to visit the city of Mecca just for the pilgrimage. Now the Quraysh, the pagans, are informed, and with an army they come on the way and they stop the army of the Prophet. So there are some negotiations. The Holy Prophet tells them that we are not here for war. We just want to go to visit the Holy Kaaba and to do Hajj or pilgrimage. But they do not allow that. At the end of the day, for many years, they consider a kind of glory for themselves. So they are not ready to let the Muslims to go to the city of Mecca. Again, the Holy Prophet, does not insist on going to the city of Mecca, but both parties, the Muslims and the pagans, they come to an agreement that we are going to sign a, treaty, pact of peace, sulh, and when you consider the articles of this treaty, you are going to be surprised how the Holy Prophet was looking for, peace, and he was trying to prevent any war. To the extent that, I do not have time, you can check it later, the peace of Hudaybiyah, the articles of this peace. The articles were written in a way that even some Muslims, they protested the Prophet that now we are, a very powerful army. And why you agree to sign this kind of peace treaty, which some of its articles is against us, the Muslims. For example, one of the articles was that if a person becomes Muslim from Mecca and he comes to the city of Medina, the Muslims should give him back to the pagans. The Holy Prophet said, okay, we accept that. Some Muslims, even according to some reports, some people began to protest very harshly against the Prophet. And even one of them doubted, are you a prophet? You see how, the reaction of some Muslims was very harsh against this peace treaty. Anyway, the Muslims agreed that we are not going to the city of Mecca this year, but we are allowed to go the next year, and this happened. So what happened was that both parties, Muslims and the pagans, they accepted and agreed not to fight against each other and not to fight against their allies and friends. But in practice, the pagans of Mecca, they violated this peace treaty. Okay? This peace treaty was broken, was violated by the pagans of the city of Mecca. So when you have a peace treaty and one party breaks one of the articles, it means that as the other party, you can refer to the other articles of the same peace treaty. So the conquest of Mecca happened when the pagans of Arab, they violated this peace treaty with Muslims. Now, I just tried to explain what happened in the conquest of Mecca and finish my discussion tonight. And maybe in another session, I will talk about what happened between Muslims and Jewish and Christians, because we do not have enough time. So in the conquest of Mecca, again, you should not look at the day of the conquest of Mecca. It was a peace treaty between Muslims and the pagans, Sulh Hudaybiyah. The pagans, they violate this peace treaty. So based on the peace, the Muslims have the right to conquer the city of Mecca. But again, in the conquering of the city of Mecca, the Holy Prophet is trying his best to, limit and decrease the number of casualties and the number of the people who might be killed. That is why, of course, the army of Islam is a very great army, so the Muslims are very powerful at that time. But it's been mentioned that the Muslims were not told in the city of Medina that we are going toward the city of Mecca. Okay? Why? Because at the end of the day, there might have been some spies, or from one way or another, the pagans could have been informed that the Muslims are coming toward them. So in that case, they would also prepare an army, and it would bring about so many killed people, so many casualties, of course, by the pagans. The power of the Muslim army was so great in that time. But the Holy Prophet did not inform the Muslims, and many of them, for some days, they did not know that they are heading toward the city of Mecca. This is the first action done by the Prophet. When the army of Islam approached the city of Mecca, the pagans, they knew themselves that they cannot resist. Now imagine, for about 20 years, the Muslims, they have been suffering. For 13 years in the city of Mecca, they have been suffering. They were under the persecution by the pagans. For some 7 years in the city of Medina, they have been attacked by the pagans. So this is the best opportunity for the Muslims to, take revenge. And even if they took revenge, no one would have blamed them. That is why some Muslims called out that al-yawm yawmul malhama. Al-yawm yawmul malhama. This is the day of taking revenge. Hearing that, the Prophet said, change your slogan. Say al-yawm yawmul marhama, not malhama, marhama. This is the day of mercy. So on that very day, when the army of Islam could, kill all those pagans, the Holy Prophet, almost forgave all those people. Of course, almost all of them, they accepted the religion of Islam. Only few people were killed for some reasons, but the army of Islam is not going to, revenge it. And the Holy Prophet says that, go, you are free. So the answer of the prophets, of our prophet, for 2 decades of oppression, exile, confiscation of properties, mutilation, was just this kind reaction toward the pagans of the city of Mecca. As for the pagans belonging to other cities, we have 2-3 cases. I explained about them in the previous discussion, in the previous week. In some few wars which happened between our prophet and the pagans belonging to other cities other than the city of Mecca, again, in all of them, the Holy Prophet was informed that they are going to attack the city of Mecca, the city of Medina. So they went toward them, and in the majority of the cases, they did not show up, and there was no war. So with that, I finished my discussion regarding what happened between our prophet and mainly the pagans and the politics of the city of Mecca. If you have another opportunity later, inshallah, I will discuss about what happened between the prophet and the Jewish tribes like Bani Qaynuqa, Bani Nadir, the Jewish of Bani Qurayza, Khaybar, Fadak. So, there are some famous Ghazwa, although, as I will explain, maybe in none of them we have a serious conflict. So we will see if these wars were aggressive and initiative by the Prophet, or they were also defensive. So far, my conclusion is that the wars which happened between the Prophet and the pagans of the city of Mecca, if we study the background, the history and the conditions and everything, we can come to this conclusion that in none of the cases the Holy Prophet began a war. He did not initiate a war. He just tried to defend the city of Medina. So thank you for your attention. If there is any question, I would be more than happy to hear.